Hey, welcome in. Let's talk about programming a radio. I'm a big proponent of getting outside, wherever you want to do, hike, fish, camp, hunt, do whatever you want to do. I love it. But I'm also a big proponent of carrying a radio with you. We're going to talk about programming a radio, not the walkie-talkies that you can buy in these bubble wraps at these big stores, although they serve a purpose as well. I'm talking about maybe a step up from that, in particular, looking at some of these cheaper price tag radios, such as the Baofeng. I'm going to program a new radio. To me, it is a Radtail 470X, new to me, so I'm going to program it. I've already programmed it once, but I thought that this would be a good time to introduce the programming software of Chirp, which is free. I probably will put together a follow-up video to this because I want to get into why you should carry a radio if you're out doing all those activities and not rely solely upon your phone for communication. So topic number one. So the programming cable gave me fits for years until I finally purchased a good one, found a good one. Here's my understanding of some programming cables, and you can still buy them today on Amazon. The portion of the USB that actually connects to your computer has a chipset in it. And if that chipset is pirated or illegal, then it has a hard time communicating with your computer. I finally purchased a cable off of Amazon that is good, and talking to other people about it and watching some other videos. So I'll put an affiliate link in the comments below. So if you buy that, or if you're looking at buying a programming cable, buy through there. I get a few pennies off of it, but I haven't had any issues with this latest purchase. Threw all my other ones away and haven't had to download drivers or anything. So be sure and get a very good programming cable. And they're not that expensive. Under 20 bucks, you can still get a real good cable. If you're using ICOM, something like that, Yaesu, this cable won't work. But if you're doing Baofengs, Radtail, I think even Kenwood, this cable should work. All right, let's talk about actual programming of the radio. The first thing that you have to do when you open up Chirp, you have to download what's loaded on your radio into Chirp. It would download all the communications from for the program to communicate with the radio, so that once we get everything programmed, you can upload it back to the radio. So by doing that, I have my my radio connected to the programming cable. The cable USB is connected to my desktop computer here. I'm going to click on radio, and I'm going to click this first option that says download from radio. Now here's where some people will have issues. You have to know the port that your radio is connected to. Whenever I connected this radio, the port was identified for me, so I didn't have to go out and search for it. You have to identify the vendor. In this case, it's the Radtail, but you have all kinds of radios that you can select from. Every single radio I have ever owned, I have used Chirp to program it with. I've never had an issue with it. Once you select the vendor or the make of the radio, come down to the model. For this Radtail, I have just a few options. I got the 470X. Once you click OK, you can see that it says cloning from radio. What it's doing is Chirp is going out to the radio and pulling all the information that it needs into the program. So let's start with a clean slate. You will probably have, I didn't make a copy of it, but there were probably 6 or 8 channels in here pre-programmed whenever I first uploaded. And I just deleted everything to start with a clean slate. So be sure and download or upgrade, if you will. If you're already using Chirp, be sure and use Chirp Next. It allows you to query some databases. And let's do that right now. So now we can click on radio, come down to query source. Radio frequency, radioreference.com is a paid subscription. I do not have an account with them. Repeater Book is a free service. So let's click on that. Then this is the criteria that they're going to, Chirp Next will query repeater books database. So let's fill this out. United States amateur frequencies. You can do GMRS if you want to. State of Kentucky, here's lat and long from the town that I live in. And I'm going to search out to 50 miles radius. And filters, I'm going to leave that blank. I'm going to limit to certain bands. I'm going to do just 2 meters, but you have different bands that you can search on. The radio that I have, the rad tail, as well as the bow fangs, will mostly do 2 meter. They'll do 440, and then some of them will do the 1.25 or the 220 band. But for now, I'm going to pull in all the 2 meter repeaters that are within 50 miles of my location, my town that I live in. And then I want everything that's FM, not digital, because this is not a digital radio. And then if I click OK, it pulls in all the repeaters within 50 miles. You can see that it has a tab here up top. That's the tab for my radio. This is the tab for repeater book that pulled in all that query. Now, if I want to copy all of this, all I do is select that one, hold the shift key down arrow till it's highlighted, just like you would in Excel. And you're going to copy. We're going to go back over to the radio tab, select in there. I think I have to select one, select in there, or select number 1 and say paste. Now you can see that all the repeater book tab information is now on my radio tab. At this point, I can close out the repeater book, and all I have is my radio. At this point, pull that open a little bit. At this point, you can go here and edit anything that you want to edit. And, you know, the name and all that kind of stuff. Like, I'm not a big proponent of putting the call signs in here. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not a big proponent of putting frequencies in for the name, although on the radios, you can have it say the name or the frequency of the channels. So for instance, channel number 1 has this repeater, channel number 2 has this repeater. I can set it within my radio to show the frequency or the name. What I like to do is come in here and put the names that I can best identify as well. So for instance, this is Cave Run Lake. This is Stanton, little town. And I'm going to put Stanton 1 because there is a new Stanton 2. There's a new one up there. So this is Gateway. This is over in Owensville in Bath County. There's only one repeater in Bath County on the 2 meter. So I'm going to say Bath. Here's my Montgomery, Moorhead, Estill County 1 and Estill 2. Clark County has 2 repeaters now. So I'm going to name this first one, channel number 9 there. I am actually going to name it Clark 2. And then I'm going to name this one simply Clark 1 because it was the first one up, and that's one that I'm most familiar with, although the other repeater is starting to take off. And then Elliott. So whenever I turn my radio on, if I have the radio set to show the name, I can easily switch between the counties and know that I'm on the repeater and not have to really remember the frequency for each repeater. Although if I need to, I'll just switch it over to the frequency and I can get the frequency of that repeater. So that's set. There's one little thing here. I'm going to change this to tone, and I want to change this to tone. We can talk about modes and tones and all that stuff, but that's the way it needs to be set. So now I have my 2 meter repeaters inputted into my radio tab, ready to upload to my radio. Now I'm going to go back in and query second time on repeater book. Leave everything alone. I'm going to now go in and query the 70 centimeters, the 440 band. I'm going to say okay. And again, I only want FM because the radio that I'm programming is FM analog. It's not digital. And then I'm going to click OK. And again, it produced another tab with all my 440 bands. And we'll do the same thing there. Highlight them, copy. I'm going to skip a line or two and paste. Whenever I'm filling out basically an Excel spreadsheet, looks very familiar to that. Whenever I go from one band to the other, I always leave a couple blank lines. And then if I ever have to go in here and find stuff, it's easier to find stuff that way. Everything's grouped together and you got some openings. This particular radio has 256 channels, so I can afford to leave blank lines in here where I need it. Again, I'm just going to go in here and put names on them that I want to. And I'll tell you what I'll do 70 on the end of them. That way, if I'm looking at only the name of them, I can easily tell that it's a 440 band. 70 centimeters. Clark. So now I have all my 440 bands in there, and I put 70 at the end of them just again so that I can quickly tell that it's K-Run 440 band versus K-Run 2-meter band. Around here, everyone, I won't say everyone, but the vast majority of people talk on the 2-meter side of things. In your area, it may be 440 or 220 or GMRS. You have to figure out kind of what's happening in your area. I'm going to close this out. So now I have my 2-meter 440 bands. I'm going to go in here and do no, I'm not going to do that. I am going to do a file open stock configuration, and I'm going to come down here to FRS GMRS channels. That's going to open up another tab, and I'm going to select channels 1 through 22. I'm going to copy those. I'm going to copy those again, leaving a blank line or two. Close that tab out. Okay. So now I have the standard 1 through 22 frequencies here. And you configure those and name them however you want to. I mean, I do something different than what's showing on the screen, but we won't go into that. The next group that I want to bring in, I'm going to do File, Open Stock Configuration, and I'm going to come down here to the NOAA weather alerts. If you're not familiar with the NOAA weather frequencies, you probably need to. Let me bring this in. If you're an individual that's out all the time, you need to have a radio that has NOAA weather channels on them. If you Google what are the NOAA weather channels map, click on that. It'll bring up a map. I live in the state of Kentucky. Let's take a look and see what it does. And you can see that NOAA puts out frequencies all over the state. There's 7 or 8 of them, and they cover one of those 7 channels or 8 channels, can't remember now, will cover somewhere in the state of Kentucky. So if I find myself out needing to know what the weather is, I can grab my radio, run through all NOAA weather channels, and I'm going to hit one of them. I have never, ever, ever been in a position where I haven't been able to get the NOAA weather channels. So that's state of Kentucky. See what Ohio has. There you go. Now you can see some areas here that's not covered, that doesn't get hit. But for the most part, about anywhere you go in the States, you can get one of these radio frequencies. Let me get this out of the way here. So I'm going to highlight those. I'm going to copy those, go over to the radio tab, leave a couple lines, and paste those in. And I don't worry about the name here. I just go. So I just change the names to NOAA. Whenever I'm scrolling through my radio, it's just NOAA, and I just run through them until I find a frequency that I can receive wherever I'm at. And again, I've never not been able to get one of these. How many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of them. Here is some simplex calls. The 2 meter, the 220 band, the 440 band. These are simplex calls. These do not use repeaters. So if I'm traveling up and down, say Interstate 75, 64, I can tune my radio into this 146.52, and it is a radio to radio. And there's people that monitors those frequencies all the time. I'm going to copy these. Move those over. We got 2 meters. We got the national simplex calls here. We have the only 220 repeater that I can find currently near me within 50 miles. We have the 440 band, 70 centimeters band around me. We have the FRS channels, the walkie-talkie channels, if you will. We have the NOAA band channels. And one thing that I put in mind, and you may not want to, but I go in here and put the mirrors frequencies. There's only 5 of them, just in case someone has a radio out there at some point in time. Close that block. Then I also put in Menifee and Wolfe County. These are the analog frequencies for Menifee Fire, Menifee SO, the Sheriff's Office, Wolfe County Fire, and SOs as well. I'm not active, but I used to volunteer for the Wolfe County Search and Rescue Team, so it may come in handy to have some of this in your radios. If nothing else, I can listen to what's going on. I'm a volunteer firefighter, so we're digital now, but if something happens to our digital side of the repeater and we go back into analog, this radtail will operate just fine. And you can find all this stuff on the radiofrequency.com or get it from the agency itself. See if they'll give it to you. The next frequencies that I'm going to get is all these V-TAC channels. I'm going to go in, leave a few spaces, and paste them as well. These V-TAC channels are frequencies that are put out for emergency first responders, like fire department and search and rescue teams. The Wolfe County Search and Rescue Team operates on some of these. If we have to call in a helicopter, a lot of times they're communicating on these frequencies. Do not talk on these frequencies. The people will not like that. We'll leave it at that. But it's okay to listen. So if you have a radio that you can program these. These are available out on the internet. And you can listen. If something bad goes down and FEMA comes in, FEMA is going to be operating on some of these channels. So it might give you some information to help you out in a tough environment. Just getting rid of a space there. So this is pretty much how I have everything set up. I have have a little bit more, but it's proprietary to what and how I use a radio that you wouldn't be necessarily interested in. Just going through here and make sure I got everything. Yeah. So at this point in time, once you get everything in there that you want, and again, I could go in here if I wanted to, if you know, time permits, or if someone manually told me what the frequency was, I can go in here and type in the frequency that I want. I can give it a name. I can tell if it has a PL tone. I can put it in there. It has all kinds of options here. PL tone. I can come over here and say and tell if it's a duplex or not, if it's a repeater. If it's simplex, you're going to leave that alone. Offset, the mode to it, and the power. So you can manually do this, but it makes it so much easier to be able to query those databases so that you don't have to manually key all this stuff in. The other thing that I go through here and do is on my daily travels, sometimes I'll put my radio into scan mode, and I'll do it for my mobile unit as well. I will come in here and only scan some of the more prominent repeaters and channels in my area. Once I hit scan, it'll just keep running through here, and then if someone talks, it'll stop on that repeater, and I can listen or communicate with them. However, whenever I put my radio in scan, I don't want it to hit every single channel and pick up every little conversation that's out there. So while I'm in Chirp, I'll come down through here, and under this skip column, I will come in here and put an S for the ones that I want to be skipped whenever I'm in scan mode. Do that, especially these FRS channels. Sometimes they'll pick up static and stop your radio from scanning. The NOAA channels are always on, so I skip those. If I need a NOAA weather channel, I'll just manually go up to channel 50 through 59 and be able to listen to something in there. So change these how you wish. Once you have that, you can say radio, upload to radio. And again, it'll do the COM port for you since you already identified it. And it'll give you the make and model of your radio. And if you click OK, now your radio is 100% programmed with all these channels in them. Whenever you turn it on, put it in channel mode and just go through your channels and you'll see all these. And it's really that simple. Chirp Next makes it simple. If you got any questions, leave them in the comments and I'll try to explain it. Until next time, be safe.